Well, hey everybody, it's Sunday, the 12th day of April 2026. I'm Jan Erickson, and this is As Above, So Below. Well, we've gotten I guess there was a supercell with hail the size of ping pong balls in Central California area or something. I think we must have gotten the top angle of that maybe, because we've had some really, really heavy rains here, which is nice because I don't have to water the plants, so that's good. I'm glad we didn't have the hail, though. We had that one time in the middle 90s where we had that same size. We'd never had anything like that here that I knew of, anyway. And I put some in a baggie and kept them in my freezer for the longest time. In fact, they might still even be there. I don't know. Anyway, let's start the reading off with Fehu. Fehu is the first rune of the Elder Futhark, and it means cattle or wealth. It can mean growth and progress and success. It's also life force. It can be the sending energy for magical workings. But basically, it's about creating wealth and abundance. With cattle, the reason why it would be cattle, not because it looks like it. Uruz looks more like cattle than Fehu does, because that means aurochs or another type of bison, maybe. I'm not sure what they were. They were big, I guess. But anyway, with the idea of cattle and wealth, at one point, tribal cultures had cattle that was movable, so their wealth was movable. They didn't have to stay put in one spot, and so it brings up the idea of transaction. So when I usually see Fehu come up in a reading, how are we going to transact our experiences today? Now, it can have to do with tangible wealth or other kinds of wealth, like the relationships that we establish along the way with people that are positive and helpful and all of that. So lots of ways to see wealth. So let's not get too caught up in the idea of money, although it can be. Let's see what the Geomancy runes have to say. There's fire. Where is... Oh, that's earth. This is going to be water. And this is going to be air. So we've got single dots all the way down. So we have Vaya. Vaya is a new path, an intentional path that's taken individually. Whereas if you look at its complement, populace is about being a follower, and it would be two dots all the way down. So passive influence all the way down. That would be populace. That'd be following along with a crowd. But it could also be collaboration too. But in this case, we're going to, maybe a new path is going to open that might be financially lucrative or could bring other kinds of abundance in our lives. And it's a path we're going to take or initiate even. New opportunity comes, we select it, we go for it. That would be an example of Vaya. But let's see what the cards have to say. I've already done some shuffling here. I reboot my computer usually every time. I didn't the last time, and this time when I did, it got hung up in the reboot. I don't even know how that happens, but it did. So I had to turn the thing off and do a hard reset on it, which is always fun. But it wasn't good, it just stuck. So I stopped shuffling and did what I had to do, you know. Anyway, I'm cutting the deck. I'm taking the lower half, put that over there, and we'll draw 3 cards. Okay. The new path may have something to do... Well, I think what I'm going to do here, I've got the 5 of Wands. You've got a predominance of swords here. The 7 of Swords and the 2 of Swords. 2 is about decisions, making it dispassionately without emotion coming in on it. But I think that I want to leave these in the order that we have them. But let's go ahead first and do the numerology. So Fehu was 1. being the first rune of the Elder Futhark, I use the order for the numerology. You can also do it by using a numerology table and taking the name of the rune itself and converting it to numbers and reducing it to where you have just a single number. You can also do it that way. But for the purposes of the reading, I just use the order as the numerology. But just realize there's two ways to do that. And sometimes I do it the other way. But anyway, we have the 5 of Swords. So we're going to add that. And we have the 7 of, I'm sorry, 5 of Wands and the 7 of Swords. I've got swords on my mind here. And the 2 of Swords. So that comes to 15 or 6. Let's do it one more time. 1 plus 5 plus 7 plus 2 equals 15. So 6. 6, 1 and 5 is 6. So we have a 6 numerology. Now 6 is about collaboration. It can also be shared path. It can be guidance, assistance, a different type of harmony maybe with the collaboration or shared path. There's some harmony there. But generally speaking, if it's not shared path, then I tend to read it as being able to offer assistance to others, helping somebody out with something. So maybe the new path is doing that for other people. Maybe you're going to be in a position of being a mentor that you're going to develop a business around that or something like that. It could be something like that. But let's first look at the 5 of Wands. Now, the 5 of Wands initially looks like people are in a fight, but I don't think so. 5 is about change. It's about innovation, protection, freedom versus restriction. But when you look at the wands here, that's the fire element. And so you've got a lot of creativity with the fire element, the spark of new things, new opportunities, and everybody's, to me, this, since nobody's actually hitting one another with the staffs, then to me, they're expressing ideas that maybe they're talking all at once, they're doing this all at the same time, nobody's really listening, but nobody's really connecting with the ideas that are being expressed. But it signifies maybe still maybe some change is about to happen where perhaps you're in a situation where your ideas just aren't really being heard, that everybody just seems to talk, and nobody's really listening to one another. That's how I see this. Now, I used to teach karate, and so when I see staffs like this, I'm wanting to see who's connecting with who, and they're not even, the staffs aren't even connecting with one another, and nobody's hitting anybody. So that's important. But you know, if I were to walk into a dojo or outside or whatever, if people are working staffs outside, and I see this, I'm like, stop, stop. Before somebody gets hurt, so that's why I think that this is just a lot of energy at work, a lot of ideas, a lot of self-expression that just isn't going anywhere because nobody's listening to one another. So nobody can talk about one idea and see, does this going to work? And then if not, then let's go to the next person. That's sort of a conversation. I don't see that happening here, but I also don't really see much conflict. Now, other people might look at this and see conflict, but the only conflict is in not listening to one another and not listening and giving each idea its due. And maybe you're in a situation right now where, that's not helping you. It doesn't help you to advance in a current job. It doesn't do anything like that. Now, instead of opening your own business, that might be what we talked about just a bit ago, about maybe you're going to be in a mentoring position. You could also maybe be trying to advance in the company that you're at and become a supervisor or managerial type of a position that's even above a supervisor might be, to provide that kind of guidance and assistance with the overall 6 numerology to other people. So just keep that in mind. Now, I don't necessarily see this as a negative card unless you're talking about theft of intellectual property. So, in keeping with this and the ideas that nobody's listening to, could you have possibly also experienced a theft of your own ideas? this can happen in a, well, let me just talk about the card first. Here you've got a guy, and you see the dual line of demarcation here, separating out what's happening behind. You have the king's men here, the soldiers in the tents, maybe the king's there too. You have some of them over here talking. You can see right there that they're talking to one another about stuff, but they've left their swords out, and we can assume that these were stuck in the ground with these other two. Now, swords is the air element, and so you're talking about intellect and communication. You can also be talking about battle plans, or the type of intellectual property that a company has, or your own intellectual property, which would be your ideas and what you have to contribute to the situation. So you can see both ideas with the fire element, but also with swords. Okay. And so here you have a guy who's picking up some of them and leaving. Now, initially, when I first started doing tarot, well, actually it was after that, but I would look at this card as theft of intellectual property. And so maybe it's because I'm an author, but at the same time, I wasn't doing that at the time. I wasn't writing books or anything like that at that time. And but to me, it's taking somebody's ideas. You know, maybe you've experienced before in a business where you come up with something, but somebody else grabs it and runs to the boss with it, and you're like, I did that, you know. But see, at that point, the boss doesn't want to hear that, right? And the frustration that can happen, I've seen it happen on the college level where you have somebody who just seems to do all the work of the group. Maybe everybody breaks up into little groups in the class for projects or whatever, and you've got one person that does all the work. And then, but the other ones get credit for it. It's like, well, why would, that's not helpful. It doesn't teach anybody else that they've got to come up with their own thing, or at least be willing to help out with what you've come up with. Instead, you've got just one person doing all the work, right? So it could be that because you're in a situation where nobody's listening, lots of ideas, but nobody's listening. And here you've even maybe got somebody who's taking the intellectual property of someone else, possibly you. A rebalancing, this is a 7, so you're looking at the number of balance and letting things settle out so you can see the overall picture, letting the scales settle out, you know, so you know what you've got. And here, I tend to see this specifically if you're relating it to what's behind here. Somebody taking the battle plans from and this guy's probably from a town that they're going to come in and pillage and take over and all of that. And so maybe he's a spy inside here who's maybe a server or whatever with the king's men. And then when they're all, you know, fat and happy basically and drinking and all of that, or half asleep, then he comes outside, he makes off with the battle plans to sort of level the playing field. Right? So that the town has some kind of ability to protect itself from what's about to happen to them. Well, the same thing can happen in a job. And only in this case, I think that instead of you being the focus of taking the battle plans, essentially, or the intellectual property of other people, perhaps that's happened to you. That's the kind of the hit I'm getting off of it. So you have not listening, lots of ideas expressed, nobody's listening, and then your stuff gets stolen from you. And now you got to make a decision. All right, you got to do it dispassionately. Here, again, you see this dual line here. You don't see it in this particular card. And I don't see anything here that actually reflects it. So this is all happening in the same spot. But here you've got something else going on behind the scenes where nobody knows, and maybe someone has taken your ideas and passed them off as their own to the boss. And now you got to make a decision. So, and you have to do it dispassionately. Whenever I see water that's a little choppy as opposed to smooth, there's still emotion there. All right, you've got the little sliver of the moon up here. You can look at that if you look at it in terms of maiden, mother, crone. That'd be maiden, and maiden is about making new decisions and taking a new path. It doesn't mean that you have to leave the job you're at. Maybe you're going to vie for something more within the structure of the organization you work for, or the job you have. So maybe you're going to want a higher position where you can control this a little bit better. And you can keep your eye on the ball and make sure, you know what, no one's going to steal each other's ideas, and we're all going to listen to one another. And maybe the management is just not making that happen. Maybe they're not paying any attention. They don't care. But you have some ideas that could make that a better situation. And so you may say maybe there's a position opening in the place you're at that's supervisory or managerial of some kind. And now you have to make a decision, well, like this. What are you going to do? Are you going to take that? Are you going to take that idea to maybe be that person in charge and promote yourself to the boss? You've got to do that thing dispassionately, though. You got to make that decision dispassionately. That's why she's got the blindfold on and her back turned to the ocean. The ocean is, of course, the water element, and that's our emotions. It's also change and momentum. You got some rocks there, so there might be some difficulties, moving through that decision, but that's okay. You're trying to weigh things out in a way. 2 is about decisions. It's also about love and healing and reciprocity and all of that. But primarily, in this case, it's about decisions and having the swords crossed. You need to make a decision that's balanced, that's going to actually get you somewhere. And so maybe the new path is either leaving the job and going to another one where you might be able to be a supervisory role, or maybe you're going to start your own thing where you're in charge and you're the one that's defining how all this, discussion about what we're going to do and all that, that you're the one that's going to define all that for people, and you're not going to allow this kind of nonsense, which is useless. In karate, it's called wasted motion. You're doing a bunch of stuff and nothing's happening. You're not connecting. You're not getting anything done. You're just, a lot of busy work and for nothing. And so it's all wasted motion. That's what we used to call it when we were teaching and when we had our school. And again, having enough respect for one another that you don't steal other people's ideas and thoughts and proposals. This could be proposals that you want to, present to the boss or what have you. The swords could represent that, and somebody else is running off with them. And doing that and getting the accolades for something that you created. And so again, that creates frustration because again, it's a lot of wasted motion, a lot of busy work that's not accomplishing anything. And if you've ever been in that situation, which most people have, in one way or another, you know what that feels like. And so it tends to make you want to do something, right? But what you do has to be decided in a way that emotion is left out of it. And you just need to weigh things out in a reasonable way with the 2 of swords and decide what's going to set you on a different course with Vaya that's going to make you grow and be successful and maybe even bring in more money for yourself. Because again, with Fehu, it could be indicating that if you are going to get a promotion, there's more money, right? But you have to make the decision not in terms of emotional reaction to what's going on, not letting, although the frustration can be a catalyst for all of that, you don't want it to govern your decisions either. So I think that's what I think this reading is about here for this next week. Just pay attention to what's going on. And again, you may find yourself in a moment of, I got to make a decision about this. I got to decide what I'm going to do. I'm either going to look for something else, start something else, or try to, go up in rank essentially at the job I'm in so I can then have a little more control over this process. Because in the end of the day, when it's just this kind of stuff, that's negative. And it doesn't really, it might help the business in the short term, but it doesn't create the environment that the business really needs for true growth and success. And so if you can be part of that strategy and help that be achieved, then that may be how you want to present yourself if in fact you're trying to get maybe there's a position that's open or opening and you want to have that position. So you want to be able to tell them, this is how I can improve what's going on. This is how I see this. And make yourself be the one that impresses them to then take a chance on you to to do something that will that will basically make the business itself more financially secure in the long run. If you've got people arguing and doing things to undermine one another, it might not harm the business at that moment, but there's going to come a time where it will. All right. So you may be the one that has the ideas to solve all of that. And so if that resonates for you this week, then, you may find yourself in a position this week or soon where you're going to have to make a decision about where you go from here. Okay? Awesome. Well, anyway, thank you for watching. I was glad I was able to do this today. We were watching our granddaughter in a dance competition. She's taking dance and acro and ballet and tap and all kinds of things. And she's part of this group that's within like a dance troupe within the school that she goes to for dance. And so they have to go and do their recitals. They have to do the competitions and stuff. And this was today, and they just did wonderfully. So we're so proud of her. But that's what we were doing. And now my husband is outside chopping roots. I don't know. I said, okay, only trees I agree with. So anyway, so I thought I would come in and get this done, and so I'm not doing it tomorrow, and so at least I'm on schedule for once. So last couple of weeks or last month or so have been a little weird. So anyhow, and thank heavens that the Artemis, the Orion craft, the Integrity, I guess they renamed themselves Integrity, that they're back on the ground and with their families, and what a cool thing. If you haven't seen the pictures, you need to go find them. They are absolutely gorgeous, of the moon and of the earth and of everything that's out there that they took pictures of. And I'm a total space junkie. It's my thing. I love it. Anything to do with it. And so when something like this happens, it's just so exciting. So anyway. Again, thanks for watching. Check out the blog over at Stepping Aside. The web address is imsteppingaside.com. I do post part of it over on Substack. You can either find it under my name, Jan Erickson, or Witch Notes, one of the two. Check that out over there anyway. You get the full post over on the blog, so check that out. And come back again on Sunday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.